Welcome to the award-winning Dare to Dream podcast with Debbie Dashinger, covering metaphysics, ETs, shamanism, and channeling. Here you will find spiritual inspiration from today's thought leaders, along with cutting-edge insights from our interstellar brothers and sisters and ancient shamanic wisdom. Now, here's a new episode of Dare to Dream with your host, Debbie Dashinger.
Welcome to Dare to Dream. I'm excited for today because I'm going to be speaking with Kaedrich Olsen, who is an author, a speaker, a teacher, and a paranormal expert. Kaedrich's expertise is in paranormal arts training, shadow worker, and he is a Norse mystic, besides being a channel. This show, Dare to Dream with Debbie Dashinger, won 3 Talk Radio Positive Change Awards, the COVR Award for the Best Podcast. Welt Magazine named Dare to Dream one of the top 20 best podcasts to listen to, and it's high ranking on Apple Podcasts. This show is sponsored by Dr. Dane Here and Access Consciousness. They do energy work out into the world. If you would like to become a teacher or take one of the classes, you can go to Dr. Dane Here, HEER.com. Well, if you'd like to know more about what kind of starseed you are, you can unlock your cosmic potential with a phenomenal free starseed video and report. It's an engaging exploration that investigates many starseed species in depth. You can learn your galactic origins, discover your star lineage, and your celestial ancestry right now. Go to debbiedashinger.com/starseed. That's DEBBIDACHINGER.com/starseed. And let's see what else. You can catch my latest interview on Gaia TV with George Noory on Beyond Belief, and get a free week subscription to the Gaia TV platform as my thank you to you. This is my second interview, so you can actually watch both quite different conversations. And I think you are the audience for Gaia TV. So if you have the platform, please watch. And if you don't yet, I will gift you with this through debbiedashinger.com/Gaia. That's a 1-week free subscription. debbiedashinger.com/GAIA. And finally, I have been offering free new moon, full moon ceremonies. I actually have laid out for the entire year, once a month, to do offerings. If you would like to get involved with the offerings, sign up on my website. The next one's coming up on May 12th, and that's going to be the full moon shamanic ceremony. I've got a lot of people signed up already, and it is such a, I don't know, it's really juicy to work with you guys on this and to get the emails back about the amazing shifts, the phenomenal things that come about after these. Shamanism is real. There's a reason why it's been around since Paleolithic times and one of the first healing modalities. So join, experience, it's free to you. Just go to my website, debbiedashinger.com, gift/gift. All of these URLs, including for my guest today, will be in the show notes and description. So now on to the show. My guest today is Kaedrich Olsen, who from early childhood and throughout his life has led a paranormal life. Living in a haunted house full of spirits taught him how to connect with the spiritual realms. Growing up, attending a spiritualist church, he learned the art of seance and channeling. His lifetime connection with advanced beings called the Whisperers gave him a keen awareness of the landscape of the afterlife and knowledge of how to work with various entities. His specialties include paranormal arts training, shadow work, runes, and Norse Mysticism. He's the author of Runes for Transformation, published by Red Wheel, and has appeared on numerous shows and podcasts, as well as lecturing at events across America. To learn more, go to Kaedrich.com. And with that, I welcome Kaedrich Olsen to the Dare to Dream show. Is that right? Or is your website KaedrichOlsen.com?
It's Kaedrich.com.
It is. Oh my God. You must have bought that URL a long time ago.
I feel very lucky and blessed to have it. It's perfect.
It's like Debbie.com. That's real estate, prime real estate. I love reading your bio because there's so many incredible things that you do. It's really fascinating. And I would imagine for you growing up in a spiritualist church, learning the arts of seance and channeling right away, that there isn't much that scares you. And is that correct? Or has anything ever, in the course since your childhood, really rocked your world a bit?
It's a good question because nowadays, dealing with the paranormal, if there are any sort of problems, I tend to be the scariest thing in the room, and I'm on your side. So, but yes, when I was younger, it was challenging sometimes to rectify what I was seeing, like in the movies. For example, at 7 years old, I saw The Exorcist, which scared the heck out of me as a 7 year old. And it took me years because the things I was seeing in the movies, the stories I was hearing, was not matching the experiences I was having. And it was almost like I was waiting for the shoe to drop.
Mm.
Being at the seances at the spiritualist church, I'm like they're quaking in my boots, going, "What's going to happen? What's going to happen?" And it never did. It never manifested as something scary. I've only had like two scary experiences in my entire lifetime, but they were easily dealt with.
Mm.
And working with clients when they're having scary issues, they're easy to work through, very much easy to work through. And it's really led me to this understanding that this fear around the paranormal is just, I'm going to just say it, cultural programming. It comes from the TV shows and the movies they're not going to be entertaining if they show the paranormal how it really is. When you have those quiet, subtle moments where you're feeling grandma, you're remembering this great time with grandma and you're feeling close to grandma, that's really what a paranormal experience is like. And you just have this innate understanding of something. But people want, the banging on the walls and the disembodied voices and things flying across the room. It happens, but it's not scary.
And can I ask you, when you say you've dealt with them easily because you are the scariest one in the room, not the paranormal activity. What do you mean by that? How are you scary? And do you scare them?
Yes, I've actually seen that. I've had people that have had some tricksy spirits or some problematic spirits. And the moment they book a session with me, like they book a consultation, and then we have our first session, and they're like, right after we got done with our consultation, I noticed a big change.
Mm.
Things calmed down dramatically. And then we talk about what's going on. I give them some homework, and over the course of our sessions, they start building up that homework and they build up the energy and they do some energetic transformations inside, including some shadow work. And they're like, oh, it's gone. It's not a problem anymore. Because a vast majority of the time, these negative interactions that we're having are our own creations.
Hmm.
One of the things about humanity is we are powerfully creative beings, and we don't even know it. So many people don't know that if we live in a state of constant fear, that if we live in a state of constant aggression or anger, we'll create an entity that feeds off of that. It's called a thought form. And it's not an evil entity, it's just fear-based. And so when it gets hungry, it's going to poke us with fear energy, and we're going to use our logic that we have, which is supplied by the media, to tell us, oh, this is a demon trying to attack me. And it's not. And so that feeds that entity with fear, and it just enjoys it. And again, it's not evil, it's just hungry. And so when I work with people and I help to explain that, and then we get to this sense of certainty, and that's the key rule,
Mm.
certainty. I'm certain I'm protected. I'm certain I'm safe. Oh, I can feel this thing coming at me. And then they have a laugh. That's kind of the fun thing. If you feel that fear, have a laugh. You're not laughing at it, you're generating laughter energy. And if it is one of these, fear-based entities, it's going to be repelled by that laughter. And if you're misinterpreting what's going on, maybe it's a person in the house, maybe it's a loved one coming to say hi or a lost soul, and you have that laugh, you're going to set up a connection so you can actually communicate and connect and heal on both sides of the veil. And so that's what I mean. I tend to be the scariest thing in the room because these things know I'm coming. They can feel the energy and they can feel the shift that I bring. And if it is something that is more than just a thought form, it's like, oh, fine, get out of here.
Wow, wow, that's incredible. Um, okay, you're built for this stuff. Because,
Absolutely.
and it's interesting to hear you talk about the media and entertainment really putting thought forms in our heads and our way of being. Same is true about extraterrestrials, right? I mean, there's a lot of very benevolent, beautiful, advanced, way advanced than us, way more functioning and harmonious than us. And there really isn't a reason to be afraid about this. So I like the way you're saying this. And I like the idea of being safe in the face of this. And the word you used was certainty, to
Yep,
approach it with certainty that I am safe. That's powerful.
absolutely.
Yeah. And you talk, Kaedrich, about you use the word divergent, which is super interesting because that means tending to be different, tending to develop in different directions. Can you explain what it means to walk the path of the spiritually divergent?
Absolutely. It's people who feel a connection to the spiritual side of things, that they know that they are more than just a physical being, that they're a spiritual being as well. And they want to explore that. But the information that they're receiving, the upbringing that they've had, with mainstream spirituality, be it the church or whatever, doesn't sit with them. They could read the Bible, they can go into the the churches, and it's like, no, this doesn't make sense because they're having a direct personal experience with spirituality. They're having a direct connection with things. And then the stories they're hearing and the information they're getting is like, no. And so they want to follow their authenticity. They want to follow that feeling inside that speaks truth to them, and they will explore different routes of spirituality. Maybe that comes through in witchcraft or Wicca or heathenry, paganism, magic, or it doesn't have to have a name. It doesn't have to have any sort of a moniker to it. They just know that they are feeling pulled to a spiritual connection in a way that doesn't sit with the mainstream. And that's perfectly okay. But that also comes with a lot of shadows because it means we don't fit in. It means we're kind of almost ostracized, if not ridiculed. Because when was the last time you saw a competent character on TV or in the movies that was a psychic or a Wiccan or a pagan or something? They're always depicted as, the kooky weirdo. They're depicted as the charlatan or downright the criminal. They're never, the competent main character. And so the mainstream has us believing that people who follow these divergent paths are the weirdos, the outcasts. And so we feel that and we tend to kind of hide and we shrink and we cap down our authenticity because of that. But it's actually our spiritual divergence, which is so needed in these times because the world is waking up. More and more people are leaving mainstream religions like crazy because the message doesn't fit. And so, as we're exploring these divergent paths, as we're uncovering our own authenticity, dare I say truths, and we're bringing that out to the world, we're giving other people more permission to explore that and to really tap into what's really going on rather than, let's say, the control mechanisms from these major organizations.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've spoken about the importance of doing the shadow work. Can you describe what specific shadows are seen most often in the spiritually divergent? And then, whatever those patterns are, how do you guide people through that?
Absolutely. Like the biggest one is every single one of us. Let me preface it this way. I don't say that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. I say that we are spiritual and physical beings having a dynamic experience. What happens on one side of the veil affects the other. In fact, there is no veil. We are the veil. And because we are spiritual and physical beings, we have our physical senses, taste, touch, sight, hearing, all of that. But we also have subtle senses. We call it like clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience. We have a whole range of these subtle senses. And as children, we're aware of that. We have our imaginary friends. We are aware of energy changes. We don't know what words to put to it. And even as adults, we don't know what words to put to it because a lot of these experiences are ineffable. And as children, we're trying to express to our parents, hey, I'm seeing this. Hey, I'm feeling this. I'm getting this kind of message. And mom and dad at first might be like, oh, okay, that's cute. Great. Okay, go play with your friends. Eventually, some people will get to the point of like, stop it right now. Just go to your room. I'm tired of hearing you making up these stories. It could even get to the point where I've had some clients were punished because they were having these connections. And mom and dad said, shut it down. Let's go to the church. These are demons. It's not grandma coming by to say hi to you. It's a demon trying to take your soul. And so they are enmeshed with fear. They're enmeshed with shame for their abilities. They are really capped down and oppressed from expressing their natural abilities because as human beings, we need to fit in. We need to have a community. We need to belong. Maslow's hierarchy of needs says that we have to have a community to fit in. And in the first 20 years of our lives, reality is shaped by our parents, by our society, the communities that we're a part of. And if mom and dad say, no, I don't want to hear about this, this is evil, we go to church, they say, no, this is a demon trying to take your soul. We tell the kids at school and they laugh at us thinking that we're silly. Our abilities shut down. Nobody else around us is using their abilities. No one acknowledges it. And then we get all sorts of negativity for using our abilities. So we shut it down. We push it away. Now, when we get into our 20s to 40s, we start to question the world. We start to say, hey, things aren't what it was. And even when we get into our 40s and beyond, those abilities kick in because we've established ourselves. We've got a home, we've got jobs, we're secure in our position. But now it's like, oh, why am I thinking of grandma? Why do I seem like I'm talking to grandma? Oh no, that's a demon talking to me. That's right. I got to banish this. I got to call the church. But little by little, these abilities start to wake up again. They start to creep in. And along with that comes the shame, comes the fear, comes that sense I've got to push it down. And so then they reach out to somebody like me going, hey, what's going on? How do I develop these abilities? And what we do is in shadow work, we go into those deeper, darker places of our inner world, into our psyche and our soul, where we've got the beliefs, the limiting beliefs, the toxic beliefs that tell us that we're not good, that we're evil, that these are bad, that it's just fearful. We've got these limiting emotions, like anger, maybe sometimes anger, the jealousy, the fear, all of that. And we don't exercise them. We don't banish them. We actually make friends with them. Because remember, at some point in your life, every shadow that is limiting you and holding you back now, the darkness that is limiting and holding you back now, actually saved your butt at one point. It was a friend to you. It was what helped you fit in. It's what helped you adapt to where you were. But now, the person you are, those are limitations, those are blocks. And so we go into those shadows, we make friends with them. We learn what they're all about, why they're helping you, how they're helping you, and what that really means about you. That really will uncover your superpower, that will uncover your authenticity that's been hidden. And then we transmute that shadow energy into golden energy so that you recognize your abilities, your gifts, and you can bring them to the world. So, where that person was afraid of connecting with spirits and afraid of communicating, afraid of building up energy around them, not only are they comfortable with doing it, but now they're out sharing it with people. They're out saying, hey, look at what I can do. Look what you can do too. And so they're able to speak their authenticity and they're able to live an authentic life, which is so important because in those first 20 years of our life, we create a false facade. The person who we were told to be, the person who we thought we had to be. And then when we do our shadow work, we peel away that facade and we find out who we are authentically and start living our true life with our true abilities, our true gifts, and our true connection. And shadow work is, again, it's not about banishing or exercising. It's about learning who you are, who you really are, and why those shadows really helped you.
Mm, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's so beautifully said. And for you, Kaedrich, what do you think is the ultimate purpose, in your view, for the spiritually divergent who are reawakening with their gifts at this time well, it's an auspicious time in human evolution?
Absolutely. Humanity is reaching that threshold. At the technological level, we call it the singularity. We don't know what's going to come when we reach that singularity. We are reaching this critical threshold that all of human consciousness is evolving to the next step. I really think the most powerful creative force in our reality is the collective unconscious, as Carl Jung called it. We are all connected to it. Even if you're a star seed in this world, you're connected to the human collective unconscious. And the medieval period really shut down a lot of our authenticity. It really shut down a lot of our spirituality. The church came in and it completely cut off a lot of indigenous practices, indigenous traditions. It shut down the divine feminine and all the expressions of the divine feminine, the healing aspects, even it messed up mathematics if we can even go that far. And now that we're in this age where we can explore things more, where we're not going to get punished, we're not going to get burned or killed or tortured by doing anything that goes against the church, we can now explore ourselves. And that is hitting the world. Everybody in the world, all 7, 8 billion of us, are waking up to that potential. And that is hitting that critical threshold. And so it's almost like there's a battle for the human collective unconsciousness, for the old way, for the control mechanisms to keep everything in place and keep everything in status quo. But that's not going to last because with spiritual divergence, we're not about destroying the old way. We're about creating a new way that works better for more people. And as we start to build that into the collective unconscious, it makes it easier for more and more people to awaken, to accept their gifts, to build and create themselves so that the old ways just fall apart by attrition. And that's what we're seeing right now. Those people who follow that old way and are comfortable with that old way, that's okay. That's their path. But they're fighting harder and harder to hold on to that one because it's their comfort zone. It's their way of being, and that's okay. But as humanity progresses, step by step, person by person, it's important for us to do our own work, our own shadow work, and our own spiritual development, because that's how we change the world. Not by fighting the system, not by destroying the control mechanisms or the organizations, but by doing our own spiritual work and advancing our consciousness and our spiritual growth individually, which gives permission for everyone else to do it as we create a new future. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. You're so positive about the way you say it to bring in the new light. We're here to bring in the light. We're here to bring in a new way of being rather than destroying the old way of being. And you're really positive about where we're headed, which I think is such a good thing for people to hear, that what is happening needs to happen. The new way cannot emerge without the reckoning, really, of what's been happening and what's trying to continue to happen, and then a reclamation of us to step forward and saying, no, we're going to claim who we are, what we do, and what we've always dreamed of having this planet and humanity be. I hope I get to experience that in my lifetime.
You already are. When we look at the numbers statistically, not with what the media is showing us, not with what's in the news, but when we actually look at the real numbers, we are in the most peaceful and prosperous time in all of humanity
Wow.
by a long shot, by a massive long shot. And it is getting more peaceful and more prosperous as we're going. Now, there are going to be little ups and downs, but the trend is the wars, the crime, the suffering, all of that is on a massive decline. With, there are little peaks, when we see it in the news, but the more we continue to do this work, the more that we're going to continue that progression into this peaceful state.
Yeah. I will have been on uh, podcasting and radio for 18 years this June. And 16 years ago, when I was in a radio station in Burbank, California, I was interviewing a psychic, and when we were done with the show, I think we went to commercial, and she said, "Hey, you have a few minutes? I just want to chat with you." I said, "Absolutely." And she said, "I want to tell you something about yourself. You are clairsentient, you're claircognizant. I want you to write those words down." I had no idea what she was talking about. "And I want you to look up what that is and then give me a call when you're done." Well, I spent the next 3 days glued to Google researching, and it was mind blowing for me. It literally was like somebody explained to me my life up until that moment. Things I had never understood. I certainly had repressed. Nobody had repressed them for me because I didn't speak about how strange How did I know a phone was going to ring and who would be on the phone? How did I know exactly what somebody was going through? A bad environment, a good environment, smells from the other side, which are always beautiful for me. So many things. And I spent 3 days poring over it. And when it was done, boy, I made a commitment to myself. I'm going to have fun with this. I'm going to start playing with it and seeing, like, if I'm talking to somebody, do I know what I know? And it just opened up a world for me. And I think luckily for me, because I didn't have someone pushing it down when I was younger, or and I know people in the position you're talking about who then had to find a way to heal and come into owning their gifts, the sovereignty around their gifts. But I did because I was older. I was so sovereign about it and so excited. Like, wow, these are superpowers. They're so beautiful to have and to know these things. And I don't know, even with coaching and stuff, it makes it so easy. Like, I'm getting information all the time and I can just, feed it in when I work with people or groups. So I hope everybody is hearing this because it's two perspectives, and wherever they land in the perspective, because everybody who's watching the show is spiritual and has gifts. And I would want to ask you that for folks. So, how do people always know they have gifts? Or so many people have so many gifts, they think, oh, what do I do with all this? How do I know what to lead with? How do I know how to tell somebody who I am? How do they step into all that?
Really, it's by listening to the silence within.
Hmm.
If we can find that silence within, that's where we're going to get the clarity of those messages. Because, the brain is just full of noise, it's full of information just going crazy. That's why I call these beings the whisperers, because they don't speak loudly, they don't shout. Their message isn't easily heard, but by just being quiet, by listening, you pick up these subtle nudges, and it's there all the time. It's kind of what I call the believing seeing dynamic. You believe it a little bit, and then when you believe it a bit, you see it. And then you see it, you believe it even more, which means you see it even more, which really works back and forth until like that door is wide open, and then the
Mhm.
door doesn't even exist anymore. And it's like, this is how it is. So you let yourself believe it, and then you experience it. Experience it with a sense of joy, a sense of curiosity, awe, and wonder. There are many, many times when the whisperers show up and they said, remember, tell people to have a good time with this.
Hmm.
Even if we're trying to reconnect with a loved ones and we feel that heartstring, that pull that makes us sad, well, they're not sad where they are. They're having a good time with it. And when we connect with them, if we can have that sense of like, wow, what is this? Oh, that's just so much fun. Yeah, cool. And we lose expectation. Expectation is the biggest block to our gifts because we expect, and I've seen this many times with people. Well, when my guides are here, when I'm talking with a loved one, I need to hear them. I need to hear them as if they're talking. And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. You're blocking it. If you just get this sense of knowing where you just know what they're saying, that's their communication. And it's almost like they're answering your question before you can finish asking it. You just know the answer. That's them talking to you. And they're like, no, 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 no. I need to hear them talking to me. I need to hear it like and I'm like, it's never going to happen. Or if they're saying, well, grandma has to come and tell me these things and I need to know this, you're blocking it. But if you can just approach it with like a curiosity, an open ended, like, I don't know, and it will come like that. Maybe you're just walking down the street one day and you get like a nudge and a notion like, huh, I wonder what this is all about. Like, I'm curious about this subject matter. And then it opens up so much more to you instead of just going, it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. Well, maybe not. Maybe it was, but maybe not. Just explore it. So lose expectation of how it has to happen. Lose expectation of what the message has to be. Listen to that quietness and then explore it playfully, like with the mind of a child, and literally have fun with it. Don't take it too seriously. Even if we're dealing with major life issues, even if we're dealing with lost loved ones and sometimes we have issues with lost loved ones. Sometimes we didn't get the closure. Sometimes we have to have some really hard messages to deal with them. Still approach it with that levity, with that lightness, and that will bring that connection so much more. And the more you do it, the more you start to discern it. And it's like an everyday thing. It's everywhere all the time.
Goosebumps listening to that. It was so cool. Um, is it appropriate right now to bring in the whisperers and
Sure.
maybe you can describe to folks who they are, what they are?
No, I can't. They're all over the place. I will just say they're like teachers, they're guides, spirit guides. And I've had them since I was a kid. I remember being on a playground in elementary school talking with them. They
Mhm.
share wisdom, knowledge, teachings to me. They've been through they've been with me through the darkest of times. I had a 3 year dark night of the soul, and they were there giving me information. And I kept saying, okay, let me just share this information because I can't stand it. I want to get out of here. This is awful. And they're like, no, 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 no. You have to use this information. The messenger has to be the message. So they were making sure that not only am I getting the information, but putting it to use. And they show up all the time. Sometimes they're people, but not right now. Right now, the majority of them are these formless consciousness. I can't describe it. They're just like disembodied conscious. Like if you can imagine a spirit that's disembodied already, but disembodied from a spirit body, it's just consciousness, just awareness and understanding.
Wow, very cool.
Uh,
Well, they are welcome here. And do we need to know anything about your process about allowing these energies to come through you?
no, because the times we're in. We look around and we see so much disparity and so much despair. We feel divided. We feel separated. But what if that separation isn't separation? What if that separation is actually your connection? Here's the thing. We are told so many times it's them, it's them, it's them, it's us, it's us, it's us. We have to look at that. But what if that divide isn't really a divide? What if we can use that to see how they are different, how those people are different? What are they doing that's different? And we can embrace that. We can embrace that uniqueness, that we can dive into that. Imagine this, that you're talking with somebody that has a completely different political opinion from you, a
Right.
completely different financial opinion from you. And then you talk with them with the assumption that they are speaking the truth
Hmm.
because they are.
Hmm.
They're speaking the truth from a reality that they perceive, from a reality that they live in. And when you can see their truth from their perspective, it will challenge yours. It will feel uncomfortable to you. It will feel like something is being pulled from you. And it is. But do you see that disparity that you're seeing between them and you is actually the connection point? There's something beyond the duality. There is something that embraces that duality that we're seeking, and that is that unity. Imagine this unity with duality, that there is a connection, that there is a unity within the divergence. That's why divergence is so important for all of us. So talk to these people that share a different opinion from you. Look to see the truth to what they're saying, then look to your truth because your truth is just as valid as theirs. Your reality is just as true as their reality. But then look to see what lies beyond both. What is it that connects you to? What is it that connects that difference? What are you both wanting at the deepest level? If you were to strip away the us versus them, if you were to strip away the light versus dark, if you were to strip away the archons versus humanity, if you were to strip away the reptilian agenda versus the light bearers, what is it that lies underneath that? That's the unity that we seek. That's why it's so important to embrace cognitive dissonance, as you call it, to embrace the differences, because there is no difference. There is none. You all want the same things, even in the same ways. You just put different words to it. You just put different symbols to it. But what if the reality is the same? How would that change your world? How would that change you? You don't have to change anyone else. You don't have to change their opinion. And that's a key part of this work. Don't try to change them. Don't try to change their world. Don't even try to change yours. Just expand your understanding of how both sides can be true, how both realities can coexist inside a unity reality. And when you find that unity reality, be aware that that new unity reality will become a polarity to another unity reality. And then that polarity to another unity reality will lead you to an even more bigger unity reality. Right now, you have the steps to expand consciousness beyond your understanding of consciousness by embracing your cognitive dissonance, by looking at the differences, by stepping beyond them. These are the tools that you can use to expand human consciousness by not shunning the evil, by not casting out the darkness, but by understanding it and accepting it as a truth and reality. And that will take you to a place where the darkness and light coexist, not a gray, not a union, not a separation, but a place where they both exist. And that will take you to an even higher place when you see where a polarity of polarities exist. Hmm.
Are they with us now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Shall I dive?
Go for it.
It's beautiful. And your eyes are closed or not closed when you channel?
Oh, that was them.
That was then. I felt it, but I just wanted to make sure folks are tracking as well. Well, it's
Hmm.
quite beautiful, and I really appreciate it. And I love what they're talking about. I want to talk a little bit about channeling. And so, for people who do channel spirits or they channel extraterrestrials, how do they discern between authentic guidance on the one hand, speaking to what you just shared, or deceptive influences? So you had brought up archons, which for folks who don't know, in Gnosticism, they are considered to be demonic rulers, or maybe reptilian agendas, or just in general, how does someone who is doing it or is interested in opening up to channeling discern which they're inviting in or which is coming in?
To better understand that, you have to understand time. Time in the human sense is linear, cause and effect, step by step. One moment progresses into the next moment, and you live in one dimension that moves in only one direction. But time outside of the human experience, everything exists all at once. Everything, everywhere. There is no locality, there is no temporality. Everything is eternal, always. And the way that you move and the way that you communicate with others is exactly the same. You just tune into the frequency, as you call it. You tune into the resonance of that person, that time, that place, and you're there because you are there. You always have been. You always will be. And so higher level beings are aware of this non temporal state of existence. And when they communicate to you with an idea, a concept, there's no urgency, there's no immediacy to it. It's like, here's something you should learn. Here's something you should do. Here's something you should go about exploring. And if you push back and say, no, that's stupid, I'm not doing it, that's great. Do it. Test and validate everything. That's one of the rules of interacting with the paranormal. Test and validate everything. Higher level beings will adore that you're doing that because you are exerting your free will. You're exerting your spiritual sovereignty when you push back. And these higher level beings, because they have no sense of time, they don't care if you do it right now. They don't care if you do it in 10 years. They don't care if you wait till next lifetime to do it because to them, you're already doing it. You're already engaged with it. And it's for your own benefit if you choose to or not. They'll still be persistent. They'll still say, hey, this is a good idea. Hey, this is a good idea. They might even put a book in your lap. Like somebody may literally give you a book on the subject so you get the idea. And they will use synchronicities in your favor. When you're thinking about the subject and then you look at the clock and it's 11:11, it's always 11:11. It's going to be 11:11 twice a day, right? But that moment you're thinking about it, you get that nudge, say, hey, look at the clock. So pay attention to the synchronicities. That's how you know you're dealing with a higher level being. A lower level entity or an entity that is in its own best benefit has a sense of immediacy, has a sense of consequence. You need to do this right now. If you don't do this, these things are going to happen. If you don't do that, those are going to happen. You don't want this to happen. Do this right now. It's because it's acting in its own interest, not yours. And it's giving you that sense of fear, that sense of urgency. You have to do this. And so you engage in that and you feed it, and then it gives you another thing to do that has a sense of urgency and consequence. And you feel that you're on a mission. Now you've got this voice guiding you. Oh, I need to do this now. Oh, I got to do this now. And you don't realize you've gone down a slippery slope and you're on a path that is difficult to get out of. Well, it's not that difficult. Go back and listen to those voices that don't seem to care. Those voices say, hey, try this. No, I'm not doing that. Okay, fine. Do whatever. Listen to those voices because those are the ones that are guiding you on the path that will never interfere with your free will. Where those others that have emergent urgency and consequence are overriding your free will with fear.
Mm. Talk about synchronicity. In January, I spoke at an event, and a very reputable channel suddenly started channeling the Lyran beings and telling me that I also was a channel and that they knew I was excited, they knew I was afraid, that they wanted to guide me. And it was really unexpected information. And I didn't know what to do with it. And I think as time went on, I released it more and more. And then just recently, last week, there's a very dependable channel who was on my show. And when we were done with the program, about to sign off just between she and I on Zoom, all of a sudden she starts channeling my higher consciousness, saying, finally, we get a chance to be with you. You know, you can do what she does and you can channel, and you need to be more in the spotlight. Like, this is your path. It was like, it's a lot because I've never seen myself like that. But I'm more and more synchronistic, right? Okay, it keeps coming to me. Got it. And I'm open because I know on the other side of something, I have enough life experience that I'm going to be okay and it's probably going to be wonderful. There's a reason why I'm opening up to this. So, how does one? Are there practical techniques? Are there rituals that spiritually divergent people like myself and others listening can use to safely open our channels to otherworldly beings, including extraterrestrials?
Absolutely. Definitely seance is a good tool. Definitely seances that, and you can build up your ability to seance. Like I teach people to use a pendulum, even a Ouija board. Remember, a Ouija board is just a piece of wood with letters and numbers on it. It was nothing scary until The Exorcist came out. There's nothing scary about a Ouija board. And as you're doing that, you get into automatic writing, and then you start to recognize that you're getting that message before you ask the question, or as you're asking the question, the message comes in. Start to pay attention to that more. Now, these rituals of seance, they're about teaching you to set sacred space, about clearing space inside, about opening your mind, about realizing that there is no veil between the worlds. You are the veil. When you tune in, tune out. And it teaches you how to tune in. It teaches you what, remember, we were talking about that when there's no movement, there's no communication, it's just resonance. You tune into it. So when you know what grandma feels like, when you know what dad feels like, when you know what one of your guides feels like, you tune into that energy. You just let yourself feel that energy. You breathe into it, you tune into it, and you clear your mind and you let it flow through. Here's the one of the key aspects to that, one of those resistance factors, that expectation. What if you can let go of the message? What if the message isn't even important at the moment? Like when you're doing automatic writing, I tell people don't even read it when you're writing it. Just write it down and read it later. When you're channeling something, don't even worry about retaining the information. Record it if you want to, or have somebody else record it. But in that moment, just blah, let it go. So, like when I'm working with clients or students or channeling, I have, they'll come back and ask me, well, what was this and what was that? I don't know. I didn't retain the message. I just let it flow through. And so if we can let go of like, oh, I have to pay attention to this, who cares? Just let it go through. Record it if you want to. Listen to it later. That's one of the best ways of doing that. And again, seance is a good tool to learn to use it, but it's training wheels. Some people use it their whole life, and that's great. And when I do lead seance, when I do lead public seance, it's teaching people how to do seance. It's teaching people how to tune in. But eventually, you don't need the tools. because you realize you are the whole point of connection the entire time. The ritual, the tools are nothing but just showing you how to use your own natural abilities, your own natural gifts. So think of it this way. When you were a kid and you were taught how to ride a bicycle, somebody held onto the bicycle. Maybe you had training wheels so that you could learn how to balance it. And then eventually you got to the point where you didn't need the training wheels or the person holding it, but it was a little scary at first. And maybe you fell down a couple times. That's okay. That's part of the learning process. But then when you stopped looking at your front wheel, when you started looking ahead, when you stopped paying attention to what you were doing at the moment and you just rode the bicycle, suddenly you could ride that bicycle everywhere because it's using your natural ability to balance. It's using the centripetal motion of the gyroscopic effect of the bicycle to keep it upright.
How
That's
would you use the seance? Would you say who wants to speak through me and or what kind of beings are you? Would you start someplace like that or what kind of questions would you ask?
oh, I would definitely on the individual basis or with family and friends, specifically who do you want to reach? Who do you want to connect with? And just let yourself tune into that. And then even can ask if there are guides, because I always recommend bringing in guides and ask if the guides have any information or want to elucidate, because sometimes we need the guides to translate for us. Sometimes a spirit comes through and it can't speak so well, or it's difficult for them, and the guides can translate, which does open us up to telephone, the telephone game. Like the spirit says this, the guide says this, I say this, and then the other person, it can lead to some misinterpretation. But I would start off with specific questions with specific individuals that you want to connect with, but still lose expectation of how they have to answer and what that answer looks like, even that they're going to answer your questions. People come in and they say, hey, about this with my job. Hey, what about my career? Hey, what about all of the stuff I'm working on and the difficulties? And then it says, well, what about your love life at home? And they're like, that's not what I'm asking about. Well, that's the issue that we need to deal with. And then when they resolve the love life at home, then it's like, oh, that's why work is so challenging because I'm so focused on what's not working at home. So let go of how the answers have to come through.
Hmm.
But yeah, start off with a specific person.
All right. I want to dive a little bit into Norse mysticism with you. I love this subject so much. And years ago, I had my genetics tested. My DNA was pretty boring, but really the sauce was in the genetics. And I've always had this proclivity to watching Viking shows. I love them. And I think the people were incredible. And by the way, I look at you and I see you. I see you dressed in the furs with your weapon behind you, with things, beads in your beard. I mean, it's so powerful. And when I had my genetics tested, it came back one of several very interesting things that spoke to my life now was Scandinavian Viking. And so I was like, cool, I am not surprised. How do the Viking or the Norse spiritual traditions approach spirit communication? Because most people think of them, oh, they were at sea a lot, or oh, they were warmongering, but they were deeply spiritual. They would also drink things to leave this realm and go to other realms. So tell us about that.
They were very spiritually connected. To them, the land spirits were neighbors.
Hmm.
They connected with the spirits of the land. It was just an everyday natural thing that they communicated and connected with the land spirits. To them, the ancestors walked among them, guided them, showed them where to go. And they were always in communication with it. Sure, there were people that were disconnected from it, afraid of it, maybe not sure, but it was a regular part of their life. It was something interwoven into their rituals and their everyday spirituality that we recognize the ancestors here. We recognize the spirits of the land and everything all around us. It was no, there was no separation between, it was not like today where we go to a seance or we go to a temple or we go to a ceremony to have our spiritual connection. It was there all the time.
And are there practices that they had that could support folks who feel out of step with mainstream spirituality? Are there practices we can bring in to today and what we do?
Absolutely. I've got a few available. Of course, my book, Runes for Transformation. It's not about like divination or fortune telling kind of thing with runes. It's about recognizing the runic energies within you and seeing runic energies in the world all around you and then tuning those back and forth. Because runes were a tool for magic, for manifestation, for causing change in the world. It wasn't a divination tool like it is today. And so runes were sung. So use the power of the voice, the power of sound healing, a sound manifestation for working with runes. I've got a course it's called Viking Spirit Communication. And one of these days, I'm going to put together a book because I've identified 13 different forms of necromancy. And necromancy is not a bad thing. Necromancy just means communicating with spirits, communicating with the dead. That's all it means. And I've identified 13 different forms that the Old Norse would use for that. And in this course that I've got online, Viking Spirit Communication, I share with you three different methods of it, where one of them is called utaseta, sitting out, where at night you go to a crossroads or you go to a spiritually active location and you just sit. You just sit with an open mind, with a clear mind, and then you communicate with whatever comes through. An example of this would be a story of a shepherd that wanted to be a poet. Did Utaseta on the burial mound of an old famous poet. And during the night, that poet came to him and shared with him the techniques and the practices of composing poetry. And so now the shepherd was able to compose poetry and became a great poet. You wouldn't think of the Old Norse, these big burly men, but they were poets. They loved to tell stories. And so Uta is a great way of really connecting with that. And the Old Norse had various forms of seance, various forms of calling spirits into the room where you can communicate with them and talk with them. And it's something that we can still do today using their techniques. I mean, the Norse is alive and well within our culture. Runes, for example, the letters of the runes. Runes were originally the written language of the Old Norse and Proto Norse languages. And so letters like R, S, T, B, C, I, they come directly from runes. If you were to see the words sister, father, brother, mother written on a rune stone 1,000, 2,000 years ago, you would be able to read those words because they were pronounced the same way, written almost exactly the same way. The days of the week, like Tuesday is Tyr's Day after the Norse god Tyr. Wednesday is after Odin. It's Odin's day. Thursday is Thor's day. So it's already a part of our culture. It's already within us. The runes are a part of our language. English is a sacred language because the runes are infused with the words that we use and the way we speak it. So we're already accessing it without realizing it.
How did the ancient Norse, how did they navigate the spirit world? What are some of their practices? What are the things that they did, that we don't often get to see or learn about?
Mhm. There's a practice called Seidr, which is similar to shamanism, where somebody would go into an altered state of consciousness and then they could go explore the spirit realms. They would use it for prophecy, for healing, for manifestation, but it was a way to get out and explore. And a device, a spiritual device that is useful for that is a feather coat, like a falcon coat or an eagle coat. And it gives you that ability to fly between worlds. So, the gods are in Asgarth, which is the realm of the high gods. The nature deities are in Vanaheim. The spirits of the dead are in Helheim. Not to be confused with the Christian hell. It's a completely different version of it. And you could use this as a device for crossing between the worlds. And so put on your falcon coat, go flying throughout the worlds, and you can explore all of these various different realms.
Did they drink something? Did they eat something in order to do this?
Maybe.
Hmm.
Probably. There is potential examples of Amanita muscaria, of
Right.
henbane, of liberty caps, different type of mushrooms, different herbs. We don't have any archaeological evidence of any of these residues in any sort of jars or any sort of thing. So we don't know. There's no direct references in the lore, but you have to remember that the lore was written by Christians that were very careful about what they documented. So the other way we can look at is the law books, what was written down as illegal. Like, for example, utaseta, that you couldn't go out at New Year's Eve at night to go sit at a crossroads. So that's how we know utaseta was done like New Year's Eve at a crossroads, because the law says to not do it. So we have potential because henbane grew there. They had access to Amanita muscaria. They had access to liberty caps. They had access to these materials, and we are pretty sure they knew how to use them. Especially the Sami would have used them. They still use it today. So the answer is maybe. We just don't have a definitive yes, this is what they used for it.
Got it. Yeah. Also, the Vikings had a really strong belief in fate or weird, W-Y-R-D, if I'm saying that right, weird, wired. But there's this Norse quote which goes, "That which must happen will happen," and expresses this very stoic acceptance of destiny. Do you think that, going back to the fate or the weird, do you think that that quote, "that which will happen or must happen will happen," do you think the quote is saying, embrace the unknown, trust the path ahead? Why do you think they came up with that quote, and why did they believe so strongly in fate?
Yeah, they were a very fatalistic society. They definitely believed the path you were on is the path that you were on, and that's it. That's where you're going. At least that's what was recorded. Now, their concept of fate is a bit complex. We have the Norns, which some people try to relate it to the Parse or the fates from the Greco-Roman tradition, past, present, future. They're really not the same. Their names like Urth is that which is, and Verthandi, that which is becoming, and Skuld, which is debt. And it's like a cyclical process of one moment leading into the next moment. And it all centers around something called Orlog. Literally means primal law, but that's kind of like your purpose, your path, your destiny that you're supposed to fill. And in that way, you traverse Urskuld Verthandi as you're going along that path of Orlog. Now, in a sense, we are still bound to that because all of us have a purpose. We all have a reason that we exist. That's why we're here. And that is sort of like a river flowing or gravity pulling us in a certain direction. And you have the free will to resist it. You have the free will to stop it. And in the Old Norse term is might and main. I live by my own might and main. You can think of that as affluence and influence. Main is like the resources you can draw upon, and your might is how influential you are in the world. And so people would thrive off of their might and main, knowing that even though they're pulled in a certain direction, they have a purpose, their urlog, that they still have a say on it, which is where I contrast that with causality. This is one of the big differences between Old Norse period and today, where in Old Norse, this is the fate you have been given. These are the runes that have been carved for you. This is where you're going. And my answer to that is yes, if you don't know about it. You're doomed upon the path if you are not aware of it. But if you can build that awareness, if you can think about it, this step leads to that step, which I can make a change here or I can make a change there, or you tap into what your purpose is, the reason why you exist, and you still have free will, how you express that. That's one of the key things that people don't understand about purpose. They think it's like, I'm locked into this and I have to do this. No, you have a free will of how you get to express what that purpose is, which is what causality is all about. You get to see ahead. You get to kind of step out of the temporal bounds of the physical world and see the whole processes laid out before you, and you get to choose how you go along that path. So if it's a big river pulling you in a certain direction and you're right on the raft on the, rowing a boat, you can choose to anchor it in place and say, "No, I'm not going anywhere." But that river's still going to pull you. Or you can choose to paddle upstream. You can do it and you can waste your energy on that. Or you can choose to just go downstream and let the river flow with it. Or you can put that oar to the water and go in that stream full speed ahead. And then what happens when you do that is you realize that there never was a boat, that there never was any raft, that you are the river the entire time,
Oh,
and that it was your choice what you did the entire time. So why not embrace that path? Why not embrace it and just let yourself be on that path in your own authentic expression of it? So yes, they were fatalistic. And in today's world, we can apply causality instead of fatalism. We get a choice.
incredible. tell people, I know you mentioned the programs you have. Tell us a little bit more. And by the way, I mentioned Gaia TV in the beginning, but you, my dear, just Google your name. You're all over Gaia TV. I mean, I think you've been in lots of documentary interviews there and probably interviews. So
Mhm.
let's put the limelight on you a little bit and tell us where can we find you? What are you offering? What's coming next, etc.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely on Gaia.com. Lots of shows, Open Mind, Beyond Belief, Ancient Civilizations, Deep Space. Yep, I'm on there. Um, I really like working with Gaia. Good folks over there, really good people. They know what they're doing and they've got a good mission in this world. So definitely check out Gaia.com if you haven't. Debbie's on there. You've got great stuff on there. I love it. So yeah, check out Gaia. And then, of course, my webpage, Kaedrich.com, where you can like book one-on-one sessions. We start with a consultation to see like what program is right for you versus maybe one-on-one kind of sessions. The new programs that I've launched this year is I've got the Afterlife Codex, which invites you to be able to explore the afterlife for yourself. So many people's lives have changed because they've had a near death experience, because they were on the other side and they're no longer afraid of death and they're spiritually connected. So this course asks the question, what can you get out of a near death experience without having to die? And I will show you techniques how you can cross over, how you can explore the spirit world, and even communicate with spirits here in the physical world so that it eliminates any doubt, any worries, any concerns, so that you can build your own place in the afterlife. And then I've also got a program that I launched called The Veiled Path. This is shadow work for the spiritually divergent. For people who don't fit into the mainstream spiritual paths, this is where we work with dark goddesses, where we work with various ceremonies and rituals, where we explore the shadow side of the planetary archetypes. You can find out how the sun, Mercury, Venus all affect you, both at the light side and the dark side. And so we go into all of these things. It's a 9-week course where you're exploring a different aspect of shadow work, as well as it gives you access to my Tuesday night, what I call the Veiled Circle. It's a group of people where we get together. I give a little bit of extra bonus training because I've got so much to teach. And then you can use this as an open Q&A, ask me anything. And we talk about so many different things. We've already got over 50 videos available on YouTube that you can peruse that of this bonus training and Q&A kind of thing. So you get access to that. So those are the two big programs. Upcoming later this year, I'm going to be putting out a course for sacred masculinity to help men connect with various archetypes of the sacred masculine so that they can lose the archetypes that we've been given as men, the toxic archetypes, the negative archetypes, and embrace their own sacredness and express sacred masculinity in their own unique way that is helpful and beneficial to the world.
And something like that for the men, is this done online? People can join from anywhere?
Yep, absolutely. All of my courses and everything is either pre-recorded video online kind of such, or we do one-on-one via Zoom. Every my tribe is worldwide now. It's awesome.
Mhm. I can imagine. Okay, well, this is Dare to Dream, Kadrick. So, what are you next, Dare to Dream? Future dreams and goals. Your book, you talked about the book you'd like to write about the 13 practices. What else?
Ah, I love to teach. I love teaching. So I want to be able to get out and traveling again. I want to be able to meet more people, do more lectures. I've got probably another 3 books in my head that need to get out, including a children's book that needs to come out for runes. So there's a lot. And so for me to dream big is to just reach more people, share this information with more people. I have hundreds of pages of outlines on a Google Drive of material that need to be put together and shared with the world. So my dream big is just to get this information out to as many people that are ready to receive it and just keep sharing and creating because I've got so much to create and share with the world.
You certainly do. Thank you. Second time in the show, folks. You can catch his other interview from, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. So we've got two Kadrick, very different conversations. I love talking to you. Thank you so much for being with us today.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation too. It was great.
Yeah, it's yummy. And I got a lot out of it. And folks, if you want to learn more, if you want to explore working with him or get some of the programs, go to kaedrich.com. That's Kaedrich.com. And I end today's show with this quote, which is a Norse proverb. Bravery is half the victory. And just to explain that, half of any battle the Vikings believed was won through sheer courage. Courage is actually a French word, courage, which means to have heart. And it's a reminder that facing challenges with boldness can often bring success. Subscribe to this #1 transformation conversation podcast, Dare to Dream with Debbie Dashinger. Please leave a comment. I do read them all. Like, subscribe, share it with people you know who will enjoy this. Next week on the podcast, I am featuring Tom Pinkson, PhD, who is a medicine man of the spirit who carries ancient wisdom legacies in a modern way. Thank you for joining us today on the show. Pleasure, honor, as always.